Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. This is going to be a quick little how-to for this new template called the Fern. I launched it recently and this is the first time I've had a chance to sit down and actually film how this thing goes together. It's a fun little system, it's incremental, so this one template here can create this whole thing here. As you can see, the first part of the fern up here, this 3 points, is made from this part of the template. The next one is 5 points, so you come down a notch, down a notch, down a notch, and you basically work that up to the full-sized fern leaves that are at the bottom. We do a kit of materials, and all the weights and measurements that I do in this tutorial is based on the wool that we supply. In the kit you get the wires to make a full-sized fern. Obviously you can divvy it up however you like. The template is separate, and again we do that separation thing so that you can buy one or the other. You can just buy the template, use your own materials, or you can, if you already have the template, you can buy more materials without duplicating purchases. The kit comes in 3 colours. This is the willow, and this is a gorgeous sort of soft, subtle colour. This is the autumn green, and the camera just doesn't do this justice, but it's got this real deep richness to it. And this is the leaf green, and this is the one that is featured in most of the pictures that are dotted about of the completed fern. That's this one. It's very bright, very spring-like. So those are the 3 colours that you can choose for the kit. The kit also, as I said, comes with, I think it's 22 gauge wires that we've put in there to really make sure that you've got some good structure. And then there is a huge 18 gauge wire which forms the center kind of post. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to fill this fern. You might notice, see if I can get a close up, that there is this hole at the end, and that's been put in deliberately. There we go. And that's a wiring hole, and I'm going to show you what we use that for as we progress with the project. So what are you going to need for the project? Well, you're going to need your wool, you're going to need a felting surface, you're going to need a felting needle, you may need some glue. This is a super glue gel, and I recommend this one. It gives you a few extra seconds sort of working time. It doesn't really grab like the very liquid super glue does. And if you are interested, then there is this little guy, which some of you may have seen before, and this is a small little incremental scales which you can use to weigh out very small amounts of wool. It helps with consistency, especially when you're making, you want to make 2, which are pretty much the same weight. It really does help, and I use it quite a lot. You can find them on eBay. I'll put a link somewhere to the one that I have, and you'll probably find that very, very useful for doing petals and all sorts of things. So that's all the tools, equipments and everything else sorted. We'll crack on with our project. I'm going to use the willow for my fern, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the whole thing from top to bottom. So I'm going to produce the full length leaf. But obviously, if you're making the full fern, you do what I'm doing in stages. There is a sort of a written bit on my blog, which is on mumsmakery.co.uk, and on that blog post there is a listing of all of the different weights and measures that I use for each part of the fern. So hop over there and do check that out. That's on mumsmakery.co.uk. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just start with a little piece of this wool. Now, if you're starting to make the big, the full spray, then you're just going to want to start by filling in these top 3 points. And for that, it's about 0.2 of a gram. So I'm just going to use my little scales over here. We've got about 0.2 there. Now, if you're wiring to make the big one, just make this sort of top bit and put it to one side. You're not going to wire that. This top bit is very easy just to, put on the end of the 18 gauge wire that goes up the middle. But from everything else, you're going to wire as you go. Now, I'm going to fill the whole thing before I wire, but you would do exactly the same process for each of the sections. So all I'm going to do is just start off by getting some wool in this end. So however big you're making this, you want to put down half a layer, if that makes sense. So let me just pull some of this out. Because what we're going to do in essence is put the wool in halfway. Now my template is 10mm, exactly the same as yours. A 15mm template just doesn't work for this particular design. The more intricate the design, the height becomes more of a hindrance. So what we start off by doing is just laying down in each of the sections. And I'm nice and light with the needle. There we go, and if you can see in there. So if you were making the big spray, this is pretty much where you would just fill it up a little bit more than I've got here. I've not used the full 1.2, but then you would take it out and put it to one side, because this is just going to dot on the end of the big center wire. However, I'm making the full one, so all I'm going to do is put down a very light amount. Get these. You don't want to overfill them. So if you were doing the 5-point piece, then you would be using 0.4 grams. It effectively goes up by 0.2 of a gram for every extra 2 points. So you would have 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 8, 1 gram, 1.2 grams, and then the whole thing will take about 1.4 grams. So these we will fill up. Don't overfill the center. Work on your points, but kind of keep the center. Don't overfill or overfelt that currently. We're just working on these points. You will be getting some adhesion to your felting surface, but again, we're not using, we're not driving into our surface. So nice and light. I'm just going to lift it. It all comes out. It's not a problem. Just turn it over, tuck it back in. And turn it back over again. And as you are coming into the centre, do make sure that your centre fibres do overlap. Otherwise you're just going to end up with a lot of bits. So you do want to make sure that you're getting that crossover so that they are all sticking together. I'm just going to work up, turn it over. I don't recommend a multi-tool for this. I did try, it ended badly. Okay. I am doing this as quickly and as crudely as I dare, but you will probably spend a bit more time on this. This is more just the, you know, the how-to. And see, I'm bringing those fibres up into the centre. And you don't want to felt everything too firmly. You want to felt it until it's starting to hold its shape. This wool does blend to itself beautifully. So if you need to top up a section, if you've got a thin spot, it makes it very easy to do. Pay particular attention, you know, to your corners. Oh, missed one. It's okay, we'll just stuff it in there and pretend that didn't happen. He's just working it from both sides. Now, depending on, you know, which part you're making, as I said, I'm going to go right to the end. I'm not really weighing any of these bits out, I'm just eyeballing it for speed. So I've got my little bit of fluff, so I'm just going to bring that across into the middle. It's possibly worth pointing out that I'm using my trusty 40 spiral. I find this needle is the one that I use the most. It's not too aggressive with the wool. You know, it gives you plenty of working time. And we keep going. I'll bring some of those fibres up, overlap. And It all comes out the back. Don't be horrified if this happens. You know, just stuff it back in. It takes a little bit of time for the fibres to learn where to go. Almost there. Then I can show you the fun bit. Yeah, you can see it's building up. Don't be too tempted to rip the whole thing out just yet. You want to do a lot more firming up inside of the template. I mean, once it's out, you can always put it back in the template. And if you've wired it, there's a little trick to doing that, but let's move that wire out the way. So, last 2 points. And we're using quite a vertical needle. You don't want too much of an angle going on at the moment, not in the template. I'm just going to bring that a bit much, so there, that's better. So what you're going to do is work the section that you're making, be it the full leaf or whatever increment that you're working on, and you're going to get it to about this stage. This is actually, for me, I think is a little bit full because I've been eyeballing it rather than weighing it out. But what you want to be doing is putting enough in the template so that you've got a good first layer, and then what we do is we put the wire in and then we put some more over the top, and this is where this nice little wiring hole really comes into its own. So let's just finish off this bottom leaf. So the points are all good, it's just this kind of centre bit that you want to try and keep a little bit shallower. So we're going to go over it front and back, just firming it all up. Turn it over. Then felt it down. You probably will have firmed it up a little more than I have right now, but for expediency we will just pretend. Okay, so you've filled up your fern template or section of, and now what we're going to do is wire the leaf. You take your wire and you simply put it through. Let's see if I can get this there. You put it in the hole and just run it. You can see it going in there. Just run it there. Now, this is the fiddly bit, and I always end up getting this into a complete mess. So what we're going to do is just dot a little bit of glue on this. I've got my super glue. Now you can do this however you want. The trick is to get some glue on the wire stuck to the wool, but not on the template, which I fell miserably at. Maybe let's test a theory. This is probably going to go very horribly wrong, but I'm going to take this out of the template. I'm just going to use the other end of my needle just to poke it out. There we go. And I'm going to glue it outside of the template and see if that works any better for me. So I'm going to pop a piece of greaseproof paper down. Me and super glue, we're like that, literally some days. So all I'm going to do is just dot a little bit on the wire, particularly the end. It's not very much, and you really don't need very much. And then just place it straight down the middle and don't touch it. You just want it to grab those fibres. You see, it does work quite quickly, but you're now going to not do what I do, which is jump straight into the next part. You're going to not touch it, let it dry. So we're going to let that dry just maybe for about 5 minutes. I've got a whole wire here that I've just stuffed in. When you use your wires, you would probably cut them in half, or you would do one large section and one sort of small section out of one wire. So you would have the wire for this one and then the wire for this one, or this one, you know. So you divvy up your wires to make most economical use of them. So I'm going to leave that alone, and we're going to let that set for about 5 minutes, and then we're going to come back and finish it off. Okay, so it's been about a minute and a half, but that's okay. You're going to let your glue dry nicely, and once you've got it, you may be doing this in your template. I've gotten so much glue over so many templates that maybe this will work better for me, who knows. If you've taken your template or your wool out of your template, and I'm just going to cut this wire down a second, then to put it back in the template, like so, feed the wire back in, and there is a left and a right side. So if you look, the lower one, that's the lowest one, and that's the lowest one. So make sure you put it back in that way. Putting it back in that way would just, I don't know what would happen, but bad things. So we're going to put it in that way. So to pop it back in, pop the wire down in the hole, and then just start poking your template, your fern back into the template. And this takes a little bit of perseverance. It is a bit fiddly. If you've done this inside your template, you probably will find it easier, but oh, I've stuck. If anybody does find a better way of doing this, let me know. Right. See, my centre wire doesn't go up the centre, but that's okay. I'm going to persevere, and it's just light. You know, it's just finding there we go, it's getting there. I think it may need something a little more substantial to poke it with. There we go. Get back in there. It's worth probably pointing out that these kind of bits that poke in, sometimes the wool goes over the top of them as opposed to around them. So that's the biggest cause of not being able to get things back in your template. So just make sure that you go around, and there we go. So after that traumatic wiring, I mean, you will find the way that works for you best. I'm still attempting to find that for me. Although my template is glueless, so this may be a better option. All we do now is get another bit of wool, and then we're just going to cover that wire. Now you've got to remember that there's a wire in there, so you're just working over it. If you're light with your needle, if you do hit that wire, you'll kind of scoot off to one side or the other. If you're being a bit of a heavy-handed, you're going to risk breaking your needle. So I'm just using the first barb or two, you know, just working over it like that. Frill out your fibres a little bit, you get a nice blend on your existing. Just work all the way down the middle. This is why we don't want the middle bit too chunky, because we've got to lay down these extra fibres in the middle. So just frill them out. Make sure they go around. There you go, all the way down to the bottom. Just bring them in. And now we're just going to work over. So I've got you can just see the wire there. So I'm just going to lay down a little more. You can always add more. It's a little bit more difficult to remove than it is to add. So if you're in doubt, just add a smaller amount. So now we're just going to go back over the whole thing, both sides. I do apologise if any of this has gone out of focus or gone off camera, or the angle's been a little odd. With the larger templates, the more open ones, I can focus a little bit on what my cameras are doing and I can see where I am in the shot. But with this one, it's because of the intricacies of it, I'm very much watching what I'm doing. So I tend to wander about my surface. So I'm going to, it's famous last words, I'm going to stop here, which I clearly don't. Okay, I'm going to stop. You will keep going over it a bit more than I have. But then take something, probably not the end of your needle, maybe a lolly stick or something, possibly. And I'm just going to poke it out. Pull it out the template. And there we go. Oops, a bit of... So now what we're going to do is go over the whole thing. And this is where you can, you know, tame the side bits. And again, very light with the needle. You know, hold your little ferny end. The fibre will go the way that you point your needle. So if I am pointing it this way and I'm stabbing too hard, all that's going to happen is it's going to warp. So we want that nice and light. You could even go up a needle. This is a 42 spiral, which is a real polishing needle. So I would go over this several times and then put it down and then probably come back and go over it some more. But to polish, to really refine down those fibres, you want a slopey angle, and obviously you can't do this inside the template, but nice slopey angle, nice and light. I find that the 42 spiral doesn't distort. And then just work over. Oh, see my little wires poking out there a little bit. That's not a problem. Just get a touch of wool. I could even just, that end isn't glued down, so yeah, we could come in and just snip that off. Obviously with the thinness of this end part, you don't really have the luxury of bending the wire back on itself, so you will have a pointy end. You may be able to squish it flat enough, but you play with it, see what works for you. So that's incredibly fluffy still, but there's a finished fern, or at least the whole template. As I said, with these you would bring in increments down, and you would do exactly the same thing. So you would fill, then you would wire, then backfill a little bit, take that out, move it to one side, rinse and repeat all the way down. The little fern sort of sections themselves, let's move my little camera, make for some very nice accents. There we go. This daisy in a pot, and this daisy is another free tutorial on my channel, which you can make this daisy using the snowdrop set if you've got that. And in the bottom of this little pot is an old piece of foam that it was destroyed, so I've cut it out, wedged a load in there, popped my daisy in, and then just hot glued some gravel from my garden, and there you have it. I mean, it's a lovely little bright daisy, little accent of a fern. You know, you can have a little creature, maybe a little mouse holding a fern umbrella or something. There's lots of very cute and lovely things that you can do with this template. I am really looking forward to seeing some of your creations, and do feel free to email me or Facebook me pictures or of anything that you do make from any of the templates. I would love to see them. So that's the fern. Do have a look at my other free tutorials and stuff on the channel, and I wish you all a very crafty day.